Hi, my name is Miki. I'm a violinist slash producer slash composer slash sometimes rapper, and I'm from Düsseldorf, and I work in a symphony orchestra as a concertmaster. My roots basically are classical music, but since I'm like 15, I discovered hip hop as my second passion. So that's me. My musical background is truly classical, and since my parents are both from classical musicians' families, I play the violin since I was 6, I guess, and my whole family plays the violin. So I would say like 90% are violinists, and we had a piano player and a clarinet player. So this was my musical education. When the hip hop came into my life, I didn't want to like combine these two worlds at first, but later on, as I discovered that this classical influence is more and more important to me, then I started to combine these two things. I started with some, I don't know, violin melodies on my hip hop tracks that I produced and stuff like that, but only in the background, because I always found that the violin and the classical music wasn't cool enough to combine it as important as the hip hop, you know. And later, when I was like, I don't know, maybe like 23, 24, I don't know, I started to think about Opus One, which became my project, my main project later, and where I started to combine these two worlds together, but on the same level. When I was 22, I came to Düsseldorf. Originally, I'm from Braunschweig, and this is a town near Hanover. Some may know this. I came here to study the violin. I studied at the musical college here in Düsseldorf, the Robert Schumann Hochschule. This was also truly classical. So this education has nothing to do with the things I do, you know, in my second life, with the hip-hop thing. I wouldn't say that it plays against it, but it's nothing that really supports it, you know. But since I became more mature on the violin, of course, I think it had something to do with the development of Opus One, you know, because at that time I started this project to develop it in my head, you know, and I spoke to the first artists who would support me, and so it came together, let's say maybe for like 2 or 3 years before I really started to produce it with a real expectation, you know. And when I produce or compose my pieces, it's always like that I have an idea in mind. So I come here and I start to develop this idea, you know, with beats and bass lines and stuff like that. So the first approach is always hip hop. So with my pieces, and then I start to think about what is there to combine with the classical elements, and I start to think about some introductions maybe, and which instruments do I use. The bass is always the hip-hop track, and then I start to build things around it. This is how I usually work these things out. You know, for example, I have another project that I'm doing. This is a chamber music project where I compose or recompose certain songs, for example, by Aloe Black or Erykah Badu. These are 2 artists I already worked with. But this approach is always classical. I have their songs, and then I don't produce any beats or anything. I sit at the piano and I start to really compose in a classical way. You know, I have a score, and I truly write down every single note that the player have to play. So this is a total different approach. And to get back to Opus One, to my hip-hop project, is when we do a live performance of this, you have to imagine I stand there, and behind me there is a full-grown symphonic orchestra, something like 60 people maybe, or maybe more. It depends on the classical pieces we play. I have to write down every single note that these people have to play, because there is no improvising something, because 70 people cannot improvise at the same time. This would be total chaos. I mean, that could be interesting, but this is not my style. So this is the other side, you know. There, on the one side, I have the productions, I have the beats, and I have this hip hop approach, and on the other side, I have to really work classical on this. I have to write scores and everything. Everything has to be written down. When we talk about inspiration, of course, there are a lot of things that inspire me. I mean, there's a lot of great music out there. There are, I don't know, situations in life that inspire you. You know, that sounds really cheesy, but it is like that. Because once someone asked me, what is creativity to you? And I told them that it's letting out things that you collect through life. You know, you walk the streets and you talk to people and you hear some music, you see a painting, or I don't know what. And you are inspired, you know, by all these things. And if you are lucky enough to have a tool to let it out with, that's creativity. And this is then hopefully, maybe later, you inspire someone else. When I do these live performances of Opus One, you have to imagine I put two worlds together, you know, that maybe in the first place don't belong together. So of course there are some certain limits or boundaries you push somehow. But what I would love to do is I would love to do a concert where you don't have any amplification at all. So you have the symphony orchestra, that is normal, that they don't play with any amplification, but the live band and the rappers, it's required to have some sound, you know, because you're sitting there, or maybe you stand there and you want to dance and you want to feel something inside your stomach, you know, a little bass. So this is really a limit I cannot push, because I would love to have a true acoustic experience, but this is not possible. We tried it once and it's not working out. This is something what I have to accept, simply. I mean, when you think about it, I'm not the first person to combine two different musical genres. Yeah, I would say, because I truly live both worlds. You know, I play the violin since I'm 6, and I'm producing hip hop since I'm 15, and I'm 32 now. So it's quite a long time, and I grew into both worlds. You know, so this is not something that a record company or someone has thought about and, okay, come on, let's do some crossover. This is something what comes out of me, you know. This is truly what I am and who I am. So I hope that the people feel that, you know, that the people see this is not something put together by a team. This is something what comes out of one person. So I hope that the people really do understand that. You know, Opus One is a project that I did maybe a little bit to test me, you know, to test me, what can I do outside, you know, with the things I develop here. It was, my true vision was to play the violin and to rap, because sometimes I do have some stories to tell, of course, because you cannot tell every story with the violin. You can try, but spoken word is better understandable, I think. So it was to test how can I do this and how can I combine this. So it was a project to test me and to test the audience. Is it possible to do this in a way that feels natural, you know? And I hope that it feels natural, because to me on stage it feels totally natural to stand there, to maybe rap a verse, and then after that to take the violin and to play. This is something, when I had the first performance, it was quite hard, because I wasn't used to it. You know, at first you're like rapping and jumping and performing somehow, and then you have to take the violin and concentrate. This was really hard for me to do. But, you know, you develop a way where you can do that somehow. You know, the first steps with Opus One were producing a sound structure, you know, because of course if you use a symphonic orchestra, you always sound a little big, you know, of course, because I mean you have so many instruments and some of them are really powerful. And so I invited a lot of musicians, a couple of friends of mine, colleagues, and I recorded them here. So, and I started to put these things together. Then I realized, okay, what does fit and what doesn't fit into this sound structure I wanted to build. And the first artist to support Opus One was MC René. I know him from my hometown because he's also from Braunschweig. I presented him my idea and he was immediately like that. Okay, let's do that. And he was the first person to support it. It totally felt natural because I mean, for him, he came here, he had some lyrics prepared, and then he got a beat, you know, and that he truly felt, you know, and it was nothing. And I mean, it sounded like a sample. You know, I mean, everything was recorded here, and I made it sound like a sample because that was the sound I wanted to create. You know, this is something I always do. You know, because I like this sound when something is sampled, but I don't like to sample. So what I do is I create my own samples. This is how I work, because you know, all the time when I have something in my head, I can't find it outside where I can sample it from, you know, so I have to do it myself. You know, when you do this kind of project that is really quite big, I mean, you have something like 70 or 80 people involved, you know, there are some sort of difficulties, of course. I mean, it starts with organization. You know, you have two worlds that are organized in totally different ways. You know, on the one hand, you have the hip-hop world, you know, you have where I count my live band into it, and you know, the work with these people is totally, it's more free, it's intuitive, you know, you chill and then you develop ideas, and then this is totally different. But if you work with a classical symphonic orchestra, you know, then you have to prepare all these things, you know, not because these people are stubborn or something. No, because you know, if you have like 60 people sitting there and you have a certain style of working, because I know that it's my profession to play in such an orchestra, and you have to write down every single note. You have to know how long the rehearsals are, and you cannot rehearse a minute more. You know, you have to plan these things really well. So to put these two things together is sometimes really difficult. For example, when we have a rehearsal with live band and the orchestra, of course a live band with full drum set and electronic bass and everything, electric, not electronic, electric bass and everything, this is really quite loud for these people, and so they're all complaining like, wow, this is too loud and we need the screens to protect our ears and stuff like that. Sometimes it's annoying, but it is okay like that because it works like that. You know, these people have to work with their ears, so they can't stand the full drum set sitting behind them. You know, this is something you have to accept. But these are the minor difficulties you have to accomplish somehow. You know, to put it away and say, all right, we'll deal with it and we manage it, no problem. You know, so sometimes it's annoying, but it's okay. At first, I was a little bit, no, I wouldn't say shy, but it took something, you know, out of me to ask the artists and rappers to participate, because I didn't know if they would like to work with an orchestra, if they would like the idea to step or dip into the classical world. But every single artist I simply asked them, you know, via email, or maybe I knew a friend who knew a friend and who knew him. Everyone was right into it. They said, this sounds awesome, let's do that. Because of course for these people it's really special to be on stage with a full-grown symphonic orchestra. They never do that. You know, of course it's interesting for them, and these people are open-minded as well. of course, it was no problem to have these people on stage performing with me. You know, they really liked it, and they were really impressed by the energy that comes out of 60 people. My Opus One, which is just another, it's a fancy word for work one. You know, it just sounds better. And my Opus One, it was meant as a live concept, you know, because I, you know, personally, I enjoy it more, you know, to be on stage with all these people, to have an orchestra play your work, and you know, to communicate with the audience. This is something I like more, you know. And so it was meant to be a live concept, but of course it would be a shame if you wouldn't record these things somehow, you know. And it was important for me, you know, to, as I said, to test these things out, you know, how does it work. And so of course I produced an album, but I didn't meant to, I mean, to release it in a traditional way, you know, to find a record company who would buy it and then promote it and everything. And this wasn't my plan. Of course I tried it then, you know. There were only two steps or attempts that I made to sell it to a record company, but that didn't work out, and I'm totally fine with it, because I had a certain plan. I didn't want to go major back then, because I wanted to keep my first life, this classical music and working in a symphony orchestra. I wanted to keep it all, and I wanted to keep it now too, you know, still. So at a certain point I was like, okay, now I have this record and I produced it and it's done basically, and it's on my computer, and what shall I do with it? And I receive so many emails. I don't know where the people know me from, and I receive many emails where they ask me, when do you release it? And when do you release it? Come on, man, you have to release it. And I was like, okay, then fuck it, I will release it. And so I decided to give it to the people for free, you know, because okay, we know that you don't earn much money with it now. I mean, of course, if you're a big selling artist, the major selling artist, of course, if you sell million copies, you earn $1 or $2 with it. But I decided to give it out for free because I do care more about the live performance, you know, and I wanted, of course, and I want the people to have the songs too. So this is why I chose to release it for free. You know, Ready or Not was a track I really love to do it and love to play it live, because this is a certain point in my concert where it blows up. You know, when we play Ready or Not, of course, because everyone knows it, you know, the people open up somehow, you know. Until that point, I think they are quite amazed, because I mean they see these many people, and you know, and they have a sound structure, you know, on stage that they maybe never experienced before. But until this point, they're some sort of observing, you know. And when we play Ready or Not, it's like blowing up, and then the party starts, you know. And it's, as I have to admit, it's planned like that. You know, it's totally okay for me, and I even planned it like that. And the live version is, of course, we wanted to play the actual song. But on the album, I didn't want to do a cover version. I wanted to do a reinterpretation. So this is why I wrote a piece for violin solo. And this was really new for me back then too, to write a full piece for a solo violin. I never did it before. And I like it, I really do like it. And the live version is a little different, because you have to imagine the violin version is in a different key as the original that we play in live. So at the end of the violin solo, I have to do a modulation. This is why it's slightly different, you know. I do this modulation so we land in the original key, so the singer can sing it in the proper way. Simply like that. You know, Opus One, I mean, it's now 4 years old. I still do perform it. But what I have to do, because I mean, as an artist, you always have to develop yourself. and there are some new elements there. I have 2 or 3 new songs that I play live, and if I play it next year, if there's an Opus One next year, I will have a couple of more new songs. You know, of course you have the classics that the people want to hear, and they will get it because I like and I love to play them. But you know, you have to have certain new elements. And the future of Opus One, I don't know. I hope a lot of classical concert halls will buy it, will buy the concept, you know. But we'll see. I can't tell. Let's talk about Made. Made is a creative space in Berlin. I think it's 5 people or 6 who founded an institution where I would call it radical artistic concepts come together. You know, it can be music, it can be paintings, it can be fashion, it can be anything, spoken word. It doesn't matter for them. You know, they put all influences together that they can get. This is really, really cool what they do there. My very first performance at Made, or it was more than a performance, was a project where it was an interdisciplinary project between a product designer and me as a composer. What we did there was to make music approachable for the people through many different ways. And in this case, we did the following. I composed a piece that was translated and rendered, and I don't know what they did with it. So to create some sort of data and to feed this data into an industry robot. You know that when they build cars and everything from the automobile industry. And so this robot would move to the music and through the music. And on the other end, this robot had some sort of, I don't know how to say it in English, but it was a sort of a drill. And so he created a new shape out of a block of wax. So to make music visible somehow, you know. It was really freaky stuff, I have to tell you, and a lot of really great minds worked on that, and they worked day and night to make this happen, and it was really special. And for me also, it was unique. And the performance as a performance was like that. I played my piece live with a piano player, and right next to me, just maybe a couple of feet away, there was this robot, this really amazing, impressive robot on like 5 legs, and he drilled something out of this wax, and it was really, really cool but also really strange for me to perform that way. Usually I'm concentrated, you know, and I perform, but now I had next to me someone drilling, you know, so it was really like, what? But it worked out. It was really cool. A friend of mine is one of the founders, so it was obvious that we would work together somehow, and I had the concept of a chamber music project where I would, let's say, play with 5 string players and a soul singer. That was my first idea, and I presented them this idea, and they loved it. So I was like, okay, with who could we do that? At that point, I really liked Aloe Black's album. At first I didn't know that I Need a Dollar was by Aloe Black. And I found him through a whole different song. It was Take Me Back. And I loved this song, and I had to check who's that guy. So it was Aloe Black, and I saw that he toured through Europe at that time. And I saw that he had a free day. He had a day off on April 2nd. So I called the people at Made, and I said, I want to do that with Aloe Black. And I know that he's free on April 2nd, so let's call him. And maybe a couple of days later, they called me and he said yes. So that's all. That's the whole story. You know, and working with him was really, really nice and cool. He's just such a smooth guy and totally professional, and you can't wish for anything more. You know, it was really cool, and he was cool with the reinterpretations I did. You know, because I mean it's his pieces. You know, and I did with the pieces what I wanted. You know, and I didn't have any limits or anything. He just said, "Do your thing, and we will put it together." And it was totally natural, and we had a really magical first performance at Made. That was really cool. And out of this performance, because I think he really liked it, we just finished a tour through a couple of European cities, and we even had a performance in Casablanca in Morocco, which was very nice. I've never been there, and so I think this collaboration is not over. I think we will work together more in the future. You know, this performance with Aloe Blacc at Made, it was truly special for us, for him, and I think for the audience as well. Because my concept was to take a certain concept out of the classical world. It's the chamber music. Chamber music is anything that is more than one player, but not a full orchestra. So it can be 2 players, 5 players, 8 players, or something like that. So, but the situation is always very intimate. So you have maybe like 300 or 400 people listening to that. So you don't fill stadiums with that. So this is what I wanted to create. I wanted to create a situation where the audience can be as close as possible to these artists. You know, and a couple of the people who sat in the audience, they talked to me afterwards, and they were like, "Miki, I've never been so close to a singer," you know, because they often go to pop concerts or anything like that, and you have, you know, all this equipment and sound. I mean, the sound equipment, and you know, it's really loud, and it's pushy, and everything is cool, and you dance, but it's not intimate at all, you know. So this is something I wanted to create there, and it truly happened. I mean, we didn't know, because of course, I mean, a soul singer is not as loud as an opera singer. You know, this is a totally different style of singing. So we didn't know if the people would understand his words, but everything worked out fine as I thought before, you know. But you never know, and so this was truly that was truly special, I think, for the audience as well. And it's no coincidence that something like that happened for the first time at Made, because these people, they dare to do things, you know, and this was something they believed in, and we tried it, and it worked out. The second performance with these Moments at Made, it's called Moments at Made, was with Erykah Badu, and I mean, I don't have to say much about her, because I mean, we know who Erykah Badu is, and I was really happy when that came together, you know, to work with someone like that, whose records I have for like 15 years now. You know, it was really special, and it was great fun for me to switch her songs around, because what I do is I take these songs and I recompose them. You know, I translate them into a sound language that a classical string quintet, in this case, could play, you know, of course, and I have to rearrange it and put different melodies inside, and you know, I have to turn them around, you know, 180 degrees, so it would work. But on the other hand, I have to maintain that the singers do understand the music, so they can sing with it, you know. And with Erykah Badu, it was special, because I mean, when she entered the room, it was, you don't know how to react, you know, because you have someone like that, and she was totally natural. She was totally okay, you know, and very nice, and she played with my kid and everything, so it was really okay, and we had a great performance. You know, my future work at Made, we're planning a concert end of July to do another of these Moments with Made. And I hope it will work out, but we're talking to Xavier Naidoo, and he was in one of the shows, and I talked to him, and he's a really, really nice guy. And of course, we talked about doing this performance together, you know. And as I said, I hope it will work out. We're still talking about that, and but I'm quite confident that it will happen. You know, my next projects are, as I said before, a performance at MADE, probably with Xavier Naidoo. What I call my Opus 2, basically, is I want to write a ballet with two dancers I really admire. They're really cool. They also worked at MADE, and this is how I got to know to them. I want to write a piece that's about an hour, something like that, with classical musicians also, but with a DJ. I will produce the beats, of course, beforehand, and the DJ will play with the beats live to the music that we play. I'm really looking forward to it, because this is a totally new thing. I never wrote something for dancers. It has really totally, I know that from the classical world because I played a lot of ballets, but I never wrote one. So this is something I want to do, and this is my Opus 2, and it will of course be connected to urban and hip-hop music, of course. And I think in one movement this piece will have 5 movements, and I think in one movement I will use a rapper as some as additional color, you know. I can't tell who, but it's gonna be nice. You know, in the future, I would love to work with so many artists. I mean, of course, through MADE, there's an international factor to this whole thing, and they have an amazing network, you know. And so I can't tell, you know, really with who. I would totally love to work, for example, with Talib Kweli, because I really like him, and he also worked with MADE once. So there is a connection, of course. Here in Germany, I would love to work maybe once with people like Semi Deluxe or Max Herre, and again with Curse when he's doing Curse again, you know. And I would love to do more stuff with him too, because he's really truly inspirational. I can't tell whoever comes, you know. There are a lot of people who are maybe not that famous, but so inspirational to me, you know, because they really have abilities that I don't have, maybe, you know. And so you can add something to the other one, you know. And I hope that I will meet a lot of interesting people to work with. Who knows? Hey, thanks for the interview. Thanks to Find Mag. And if you want to experience more, you can visit www.mikizuhause.com and see you there.